What's up, Team Blue Sky? This is Coach Matt. What I want to do in this video is I want to talk about kind of the week that is coming at us, take a look at the key events this week, both from an economic perspective as well as an earnings perspective, to basically assess where's that expected volatility going to come from. I also want to take a look at the technical landscape of both the ES as well as the NQ to really kind of look at where the major market resistance and support levels are as well. And then the last thing I'm going to do in this video is basically take a look at what we're going to be talking about in the Trading Lab coming up this Thursday right at the market close, 4 p.m. on Thursday. Going to have a lot of fun. Definitely come check it out, no doubt about that. Now, with that said, the first thing I want to talk about is those key economic reports that is coming out in the market this week. And Forex Factory is a really good website when you want to look at kind of just the economic landscape. And when you do so, you want to look at kind of the US dollar reports that are going to impact the market itself. And you certainly want to look at the major reports and some of those reports that are maybe not the major market movers, but all those key economic reports out there. And this week, we actually don't have a big week economically this week. You really only have one major economic report this week, and that's the Fed funds that does report on Wednesday. And now the FOMC is expected to kind of stand pat, to kind of sit on their hands when it comes to the overall rate. But when you think about the central bank and when they announce monetary policy, it's an event. It's not just an economic report. Oftentimes, when we get an economic report like the ISM services report coming out on Monday, a lot of times you'll get an expected move and then you'll basically consolidate and other things will take over in the market. Other information is going to be happening in the market this week. And so even though ISM services is an important event, it will come, it will go, we will move on. Whereas the FOMC on Wednesday and the FOMC, whenever the FOMC releases, it's not just an event that the market prices in and then moves on. What the market does is it's an event. You'll first have the initial response to the event on the policy statement itself, which releases at 2 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday. And then you have 30 minutes before you get into that very important press conference where we typically see a much larger move, quite frankly, and more sustained move during that press conference as we start to hear from Jay Powell regarding the path of policy, given the fact that there is not a lot of expectation that we see some relative movement on the actual interest rate itself this week. And then secondarily, you get that press conference and then you get all the talking heads that night. And then you typically have a movement impact on the next day as well. And that would be Thursday. And so the FOMC is very important this week. You don't see it here, but the Bank of England also reports monetary policy on Thursday as well. So that's the key event this week. Now, when you are looking at the landscape from an overall from an earnings perspective, we do have some of those key earnings coming out this week as well. And now, why is that important? Well, if you go back to last week when we were looking at the NASDAQ last Wednesday, last Thursday, last Friday, well, look at the cash opens last week. Look at this beautiful breakout on the closing candle on Wednesday. You saw follow through throughout all of Wednesday's price action on the overnight. Look at the Friday response here on the cash open and the continuation. So what was happening there? Well, on Friday, you had labor market numbers, but throughout the week, you had Meta, Microsoft, Apple, Amazon report, and those companies have a sizable impact on the market itself. So when you're looking at kind of those key reports this week, on Monday night, you're going to have some reports that impact the NASDAQ on Tuesday throughout Monday night session into Tuesday. That would be Palantir. Specifically, they report on Monday night. On Tuesday, Supermicrochip Computer as well as AMD report. You get Uber on Wednesday morning, so you should see some sizable impacts on Tuesday night throughout Wednesday morning on those key earnings. On Thursday, you got Coinbase, the Trade Desk, a couple other companies out there. But the real important reports are Palantir on Monday, AMD and Supermicrochip on Tuesday, and then ARM on Wednesday. All three of those reports are going to have a sizable impact on the NASDAQ specifically. So keep an eye on those reports and how they impact the market this week as well. Now, the one thought I have here, just from a technical perspective, when we're looking at the S&P, when we're looking at the NASDAQ this week, is the bulls have had control of most price action over the last week and a half. Ever since we got that really important first increase in support right here just a week and a half ago, bulls have had control of the price action ever since that moment. And it's been 8, 9, 10 straight days of bulls controlling that price. You can see that happen on this hourly chart, for example. Every time we saw the bears try to step up to the plate, try to carry price a little bit, bulls came right back in at a one candle downward pressure in price, right back up, 2 candles right back up, 4 candles right back up, 2 candles right back up, 2 candles right back up. Those are all short-term trends on like 5-minute charts, but nothing outside of that. What's going to be interesting this week is that if the bulls have that same degree of control as we start working closer to some very important resistance levels in the overall market itself. And so you got a major resistance pivot right here around that 550 level. You got the 200-day moving average on top of that at the 700 level on the NASDAQ. You look at the weekly chart, you got a lot of overhead resistance. Now, as a day trader, you don't care much about weekly charts on a day in, day out basis, but when you're preparing for your week every single week, you should be identifying where the major areas of resistance are, because those oftentimes become real important battle zones on intraday and intraday trends. And so in general, bulls have had a lot of fun in the last week and a half. Now you're starting to work into some key resistance areas on both the NASDAQ as well as the S&P 500 that could act a little bit more as a resistance level itself. And so keep an eye on that on the daily timeframes as well. And so with that said, we got some interesting price action going into the week. We understand the key events that are coming out at us as well. Now, Mike does such a fantastic job in that morning session covering the market open, the pre-market activity. Definitely hang out with him in Discord. You do not get that awesome of a trader explaining all of his thoughts to you on a day in, day out basis very often. Take advantage of that with Mike. He is absolutely a rock star from a trader's perspective, and he does such a wonderful job every single day in that pre-morning session on Discord in the Hangout with Mike. What I'm going to do next week is be hanging out during the closing hour. So come out with me in Discord this week. Hang out with me in the closing hour. On Thursday specifically, we're going to be covering the lab. And what we're going to be talking about in the lab this Thursday is news-based trades. And what news-based trades are kind of what I was talking about with those economic events. They're known events. There's going to be a known impact to the market, and we want to learn how to navigate those, because they can be wonderful trading environments if you understand how to navigate the volatility. And so step one, we identify when the reports are going to come out. We identify the technical situations right before the events. Step two, we look to place some orders in there to get ready for the event. Step three, once we get triggered, we obviously go into trade management. That's the base way of navigating a news-based trade. But you also have to take into account the algorithms and the speed of the market in these moments in time as well. And so how you actually trade it might be a little bit different than that. We're going to get into that in great detail on Thursday in the news-based trade during the trading lab that I put on for BluSky each and every Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And so we're going to talk about how to identify, prepare, and trade news-based trades. And we're going to talk about those secondary patterns that happen immediately following that volatility as well, so that we can understand those secondary opportunities that happen in the immediacy of a news-based trade. This is Coach Matt for BluSky Trading. Hopefully you enjoyed the video and it helped you understand kind of the landscape we have coming at us this week. Join us in Discord all week long with Mike or myself, and we'll be having a lot of fun there as well. Hit that like and share. Have an absolutely wonderful, wonderful rest of your weekend.